The story began on a mysterious island in the middle of the ocean. There we saw a massive stadium packed with people. Every eye in the crowd was fixed on the staff standing at the front. Then, at a signal from the staff, a large 3-meter shark was slowly hoisted up as bait. At that very moment, a boy sitting in the crowd understood that something big was about to happen. He immediately told his older brother to look up, and the moment his brother raised his head, a colossal creature suddenly burst out from beneath the water. At that very same moment, the viewing platform began slowly descending into the ground below. There was, in fact, an even more dangerous show waiting for them down there. As the platform reached the bottom, that same enormous creature became completely visible right in front of them, which only heightened the excitement of everyone present. Then, to thunderous applause, the great creature, whose name was Mosasaurus, swallowed the shark whole in one single snap. In truth, in this future world, a tech company had brought dinosaurs back to life using gene technology, and to make money from them, the company had purchased an entire island. All the dinosaurs were placed on that island, and the place was transformed into Jurassic World Park. Because of the dinosaurs, the island became the world's biggest tourist destination very quickly. Every year, tens of millions of people came there for their vacations. But after 20 safe years, the dinosaurs had become like zoo elephants to the visitors, and people's interest in them had faded. To stop falling revenues and rising costs, Dr. Wu's team mixed the genes of different animals to create a new monster dinosaur, given the very straightforward and terrifying name Indominus Rex, designed to reignite public interest. But no one had any idea that this very dinosaur would become the greatest threat the entire park had ever faced. Around that same time, the park's owner arrived to see Indominus Rex. It quickly became apparent that this dinosaur was larger than anticipated and extraordinarily intelligent. It had already tried multiple times to break the glass and escape. Alarmed by its dangerous intelligence, the owner brought in a retired Navy trainer named Owen for a security check. Owen had previously served in the Navy, and after retiring, he had been given the responsibility of training the dinosaurs at the park. At this time, he was working in the raptor area, trying to control the raptors using techniques learned from his Navy training, and remarkably, he was succeeding in controlling those dangerous raptors. But then, an accident happened. While a new feeder was trying to catch a small piglet, a raptor snatched him and dragged him straight into the enclosure. In the very next moment, every raptor in the enclosure fixed its full attention on that employee, and now the situation was such that he could become prey at any moment. At this moment of extreme danger, Owen immediately opened the enclosure gate, ran swiftly inside, stood between the raptors and the new employee, and began issuing continuous commands for the raptors to back off. After considerable effort, Owen's fellow workers managed to pull the employee out to safety. But at that very moment, the raptors lowered themselves into a hunting position. Owen understood his own life was now in danger, so, while continuing to issue commands on one side, he slowly backed away on the other. Then, just as the gate was about to close, he suddenly executed a roll and got out just in time, and his life was saved. After this, Claire took Owen to see Indominus Rex and explained that it was a secret hybrid made from T-Rex genes, raised in isolation since birth. Hearing this, Owen warned that the isolation could make it dangerous. He immediately asked to see the dinosaur, but strangely, even after food was placed inside, Indominus was nowhere to be seen, making everyone uneasy. Even stranger, the monitoring system wasn't picking up any heat signal, as if the enormous beast had simply vanished into thin air. Then, Owen's eyes fell on large claw marks on the wall, and it was concluded that Indominus had perhaps climbed over the wall and escaped. The moment Claire heard this, her face went pale. She immediately decided to return to the control center and, on her way, told the team to stay alert and immediately track the location chip embedded in Indominus's body. On the other side, Owen and the guards went up to the wall to see how exactly Indominus had gotten out. But then, a chilling piece of news came through from the control center. The location chip was showing that Indominus was still inside. The moment they heard this, everyone's blood ran cold because, at that very moment, all three of them were still carefully examining those same claw marks. The control room staff immediately called the guards and told them to get out of there as fast as possible. The moment Owen heard this, he turned and sprinted toward the inner gate. But just then, The last guard saw that Indominus was heading directly toward the direction Owen was running. Then, in the chaos, the dinosaur suddenly attacked one of the guards. In a panic, the other guard reached the gate built into the wall and immediately opened it. When he saw that his colleague had been killed by Indominus, fear overtook him, and without thinking, he fled through the gate to the outside. Owen, too, kept running with full force, and finally managed to get out, just before the gate closed. But Indominus exploited the small gap remaining in the gate, delivered a thunderous blow, broke the entire gate down, and came out too. In that dangerous moment, Owen immediately slid down onto the ground and hid under a car. Then, without delay, he turned around to monitor the dinosaur's every move. From the sound of its heavy footsteps, he could tell that Indominus was now heading toward the guard. At that moment, the guard hiding behind the car was so terrified that even his breath had frozen. Then, Indominus appeared like a monster and swallowed the guard alive in one single motion. To save himself, Owen quickly cut the car's fuel tank and let the petrol flow out so that its smell would confuse Indominus and prevent it from picking up his scent. And sure enough, within moments, Indominus failed to detect his presence, let out a mighty roar, and suddenly moved away from the spot. But now that dangerous dinosaur had broken free from human captivity, everyone in the control room was in a state of panic. At the same time, they found out that Indominus was heading toward the visitor area, nearly 5,000 meters away, where roughly 20,000 people were present. The moment Claire heard this, she prepared to sound the alarm in that area. But the owner standing nearby immediately stopped her, because the moment a warning was issued, the entire park would have to be shut down. Questions about security would be raised, and it could even lead to a permanent closure of the park. So the owner was confident that the security team would handle the dinosaur. By that time, the soldiers' team had reached the location where the tracking chip was showing Indominus's position. But even after arriving, there was no sign of Indominus anywhere. Then, the team leader noticed that the tracker lying on the ground had been removed from Indominus's body. At that very instant, drops of blood began falling mysteriously onto his hand. Seeing this, everyone looked up in fear, and the sight that met their eyes astonished them all. Indominus had used the genes of a chameleon to camouflage itself entirely within the surrounding environment. The moment the team leader saw this and was about to run, Indominus seized him. The rest of the guards immediately picked up their stun guns and opened fire on it. But in the very next moment, Indominus crushed the team leader under its heavy foot and killed him. The remaining guards stepped forward to stop it and kept firing electric shots continuously. But Indominus brought them all down one by one with savage brutality. And in less than a minute, many lives were lost. Upon hearing this news, Owen angrily warned Claire that Indominus was a monster that didn't even know what it truly was, and that if it got out of the jungle, it would begin killing every living thing it encountered, because that was the only way it could survive. Therefore, real weapons would have to be used to stop it. But Claire did not want to see the park she had built through hard work turned into a battlefield. For this reason, she rejected Owen's advice. Hearing this, Owen stormed out of the control room in anger. But for the safety of the more than 20,000 people inside the park, Claire finally sounded the alarm throughout the entire park. At that same time, the two brothers were heading off to enjoy one of the park's attractions. And just as their tour vehicle started, the staff received the danger warning. They immediately stopped all the other tour vehicles. But strangely, the two brothers' vehicle didn't stop. It kept slowly moving deeper into the park. Several types of herbivorous dinosaurs were roaming freely in this zone, like the three-horned Triceratops, the large bone-plated Stegosaurus, and the long-necked Brachiosaurus. All of them were quite calm. But then suddenly a warning sounded inside the tour vehicle, announcing that the system had malfunctioned and the vehicle would now automatically return to the hotel. However, the older brother didn't want to go back. On top of that, both of them were nephews of the park's operations manager, Claire, so they had a special access wristband. Using it, he took direct control of the system and drove further into the park with his younger brother. On the other side, Claire suddenly remembered her nephews and immediately tried calling the older nephew. But at that very moment, the power went down. In a panic, she asked the staff whether all the tour vehicles had returned. Upon checking, it was found that only one tour vehicle had not yet come back, and that was the one carrying her two nephews. Hearing this, Claire was immediately alarmed, and told the rescue team to go there at once. But the rescue team was already busy. Reluctantly, she was forced to go to Owen and ask for help. Meanwhile, the two brothers had reached the far end of the park's tour zone, and then they saw that the fencing ahead had been torn apart by something powerful. When a way forward appeared, the older brother immediately drove the vehicle inside. A little later, they reached a densely forested area where several ankylosaurs were roaming around. At first glance, only 4 were visible, but the younger brother insisted there were 5. So the older brother began counting carefully again. Then, they realized that the reflection they were seeing in the car's glass was not a 5th ankylosaurus. It was Indominus Rex standing right behind them, having silently crept up. It let out a thunderous roar and kicked the car, sending both brothers flying several feet away along with the vehicle. Just as the older brother was about to panic and try something desperate, the heavy tail of an ankylosaurus struck the car, and it flipped over and crashed. Indominus Rex assumed the ankylosaurus was trying to steal its prey, so it immediately attacked it, and a fierce battle broke out between the two. When it tried to bite the ankylosaurus, its strong hide caused its teeth to wobble unexpectedly. In rage, it drove its sharp claws deep into the ankylosaurus's back and finally flipped it over, killing it in a single blow. Seeing all this, both brothers trembled with fear, and at that very same moment, Claire's phone rang again. The sound of the phone suddenly reminded Indominus of the prey inside the car. After staring at it for a moment, it wrapped its claws around the vehicle. Then, it opened its massive jaws and tried to swallow it whole, but when that proved difficult, it showed its cunning. It grabbed the car in its teeth and began slamming it down against the ground over and over again. The glass was about to shatter when the older brother saw his chance, unclipped his seatbelt, grabbed his younger brother, and the two of them scrambled out of the car. But their movement couldn't escape Indominus Rex's sharp eyes, and it immediately began chasing them. Fortunately, there was a small waterfall ahead, but Indominus came close and opened its enormous mouth. At exactly the right moment, both brothers leaped into the waterfall and escaped its grasp. At the same time, Claire also reached the jungle, but within moments, she understood that things had completely changed here. Scattered everywhere were the bodies of dinosaurs, killed by Indominus. Seeing this made Owen even more certain that Indominus was not going to leave anything alive. Shortly after, they found the tour vehicle in which the brothers had been riding. But when Claire saw the wrecked car and the mobile phone lying on the ground, she feared Indominus had consumed her nephews. The thought broke her completely. Then Owen noticed footprints on the ground leading to the waterfall. Upon reaching it, he deduced that the boys were alive and had probably escaped from there. This gave Claire a little relief, but at that very same moment, the control room staff made another alarming discovery. Because of the park alarm, more than 20,000 people had now gathered in the resort area, and Indominus, driven by the desire to hunt as much prey as possible, was rapidly closing in on that very resort. It was now clear that a catastrophic event was imminent. Reluctantly, the park's owner finally decided that heavy weapons would have to be used. But due to a shortage of staff, the owner himself took a helicopter with heavy weapons and set off to hunt Indominus. When the team found Indominus, they opened fire on it without any delay. Under heavy fire, Indominus Rex charged directly into the flying dinosaur enclosure, where dinosaurs ranging from 50 feet to over 100 feet in size began rushing in all directions, sending the entire island into chaos. Just then, one of the firing soldiers was snatched up by a flying dinosaur, while another was killed crashing into the glass. The helicopter then slowly lost control and plummeted downward, and in doing so, the wealthy character Irfan Khan lost his life. Then suddenly, all those flying dinosaurs came swooping in directly overhead. Seeing them approaching, Owen immediately began running with Claire toward the jungle. Meanwhile, the two brothers were using an abandoned car to escape the jungle, but the younger brother noticed that the winged dinosaurs were following right behind them. Sensing the danger, he told his older brother to drive faster. Finally, they made it to the park's entry gate, where the staff spotted them. After receiving the message from the nephews, Claire and Owen also came out of the jungle, found a car, and decided they would meet at the resort. In the meantime, all the park's rides were immediately shut down, and all the visitors were forced to remain at the resort. Then, an emergency notice came over the public broadcast system, calling for everyone to take cover immediately. At first, people couldn't understand what was happening, but the moment they saw the winged dinosaurs soaring through the sky, everything became clear. In a panic, people began running in every direction, but the winged dinosaurs were so fast that they reached the crowds quickly and launched their attack. Screams echoed everywhere throughout the park. By this time, the two brothers had reached the resort and ran into Claire's assistant. But unfortunately, just as the assistant was about to take them somewhere safe, a winged dinosaur grabbed her and dropped her into the lake. The dinosaur didn't know that this was Mosasaurus territory, and unknowingly, they all descended into the water and kept attacking the woman. Both brothers watched all of this in sheer terror. Just as the winged dinosaurs tried to fly back up, Mosasaurus suddenly burst out of the water with its mouth wide open and swallowed the woman along with the dinosaur. Horrified by the sight, both brothers scrambled to find somewhere to hide to save their lives. But then the security team arrived at the scene, and by firing tranquilizer guns, forced the flying dinosaurs to temporarily retreat, giving the resort area some brief relief. But things were about to get even worse, because the moment the military officer arrived, he took complete control of the situation, and as soon as the opportunity presented itself, he launched his real plan. In truth, he wanted to use the raptors to hunt the dangerous dinosaur so he could prove that the raptors could become weapons for the military. When Owen found out, he arrived immediately and punched the officer hard in fury because he had raised those raptors from infancy and did not want them thrown into a dangerous mission. But now, the lives of more than 20,000 people inside the park were at stake. So after much deliberation, Owen was finally forced to agree to the mission. They decided to play a kind of hide-and-seek game to catch Indominus Rex. The plan was that the raptors would first use their powerful sense of smell to locate Indominus, and the army would follow behind them and attack with heavy weapons at the right moment. Claire was worried that the two brothers might run off again, so she seated them inside a secure control vehicle and sat in front herself to monitor the entire operation. Once preparations were complete, Owen took out a piece of Indominus Rex's flesh. He let the raptors sniff it, and once all the raptors were ready, Owen finally opened their cages. After that, soldiers armed with weapons also advanced into the jungle behind them. The entire group moved rapidly through the dense jungle behind the raptors, and finally, the raptors suddenly stopped at a desolate spot. All the soldiers immediately went on alert and aimed their weapons forward, but what none of them anticipated was that something extremely strange was about to happen in that tense atmosphere. Slowly, a massive creature began emerging from the jungle, and within moments, Indominus Rex stood before everyone. Owen's plan was for the trained raptors to attack this dinosaur, but what happened next was astonishing. The dinosaurs on both sides began staring at each other as though some strange communication was taking place. The raptors didn't attack immediately. Instead, they actually revealed the presence of the humans to Indominus. Seeing this, Owen sensed something was wrong. He suddenly understood that Indominus's body probably also contained raptor DNA, which was why it was somehow communicating with the raptors. The officer watching from the control room panicked at the sight of this. He immediately gave all soldiers the order to open fire. This is where things went completely wrong, because the very plan that was meant to eliminate Indominus had turned the raptors against the humans. But when the soldiers saw the dinosaurs fleeing toward the jungle, they ran after them. Within minutes, almost the entire team was finished off in the raptor attack, and watching all of this, Claire was deeply shaken. Then a soldier came from in front who had just barely escaped the raptors with his life. But just as he was about to get into the car, a raptor attacked him from behind. Seeing this, the two brothers sitting in the car were terrified. Seeing the situation deteriorating, Claire immediately started the car and began speeding away. But then another raptor suddenly came charging at them from the other side. The car door was open, and the raptor could reach them at any moment. In a panic, they grabbed nearby containers and began throwing them out of the car to block the raptor's path. But the raptor kept chasing the vehicle with ease, dodging everything. Claire looked in the mirror and saw the raptor closing in fast, so she suddenly turned the steering wheel and slammed the car into the raptor, knocking it down. But at that very same moment, another raptor got right up close to the two brothers. In a panic, both struck it with an electric rod. At exactly that moment, Owen arrived as well. Then, everyone quickly headed toward the control room. Meanwhile, When the officer in the control room saw that the operation had completely failed, instead of being angry, he headed to the lab in an even more satisfied mood. But when Owen and the others reached the lab too, they were stunned because all the lab employees had already fled by helicopter. Then, in Dr. Wu's private office, they discovered the real secret behind Indominus Rex's genes. This monster had actually been created by mixing the genes of dozens of different creatures. After this truth came to light, the officer stepped forward. He openly stated that all of this had been his plan, and that it was because of him that such a dangerous creature had been created. But before he could finish speaking, a group of raptors suddenly arrived at the location, and in the very next moment, one raptor headed directly for the officer. In terror, the officer immediately tried to use the same technique Owen used when training the raptors. But then, the raptor attacked him. Seeing this, Owen, Claire, and the children immediately fled from the lab. Then suddenly, the remaining 3 raptors came running and stood right in front of them, surrounding them from all sides. Among these raptors, one had blue stripes on its body, and its name was Blue, the leader of the entire pack. Owen looked into its eyes and understood that it was not his enemy. So, he immediately removed the control device from its head. Then suddenly Indominus arrived with heavy footsteps and began slowly closing in on them. But what happened next, no one had anticipated. Indominus tried to command the raptors to attack the humans, but Blue suddenly turned and looked at Owen as if something had come back to it, and instead of attacking the humans, gave Owen a signal to run. After that, it turned toward Indominus and let out a furious, thunderous roar. Seeing this, Indominus became even more enraged. It swung its massive tail and sent Blue flying several meters away. But the moment Blue's 2 sisters saw their leader fighting, they immediately turned around and launched a ferocious attack. But facing the vast body and deadly strength of Indominus Rex, their attack proved far too weak, and before long, both raptors were killed fighting. In that extremely dangerous moment, an idea suddenly struck Claire. She immediately contacted her colleague in the control room and told them to open Paddock 9 because at that moment, they urgently needed a dinosaur even more powerful than Indominus to take it down. The moment the paddock opened, out came the original fearsome T-Rex that had been prepared 20 years ago. Claire cleverly and quickly brought the T-Rex in front of Indominus Rex, and from that moment, the terrifying battle between the 2 titans began. When the T-Rex faced this strange hybrid head-on, it reminded Indominus Rex of who the real boss around here was. But during the intense fight, due to the difference in power and the dangerously sharp claws of Indominus Rex, the older T-Rex began to weaken gradually. At exactly that dangerous moment, Blue returned and without any hesitation leaped back into the fight. Its agile body momentarily distracted Indominus Rex, which gave the T-Rex the opening it needed to attack. Steadying itself, the T-Rex combined forces with Blue and delivered a devastating blow to Indominus Rex. Finally, thanks to the combined effort of both, the T-Rex got its perfect moment, and with full force, it sent Indominus Rex crashing away with a powerful shove. But the reverberating impact of that thunderous collision immediately caught the attention of the ocean's true predator. And then the colossal Mosasaurus suddenly leaped out of the water at the speed of lightning. It clamped its jaws around Indominus Rex's neck and dragged it down into the deep ocean. And just like that, Indominus Rex was gone forever. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Like the video, subscribe to Plot Recaps HD, hit the bell icon, and let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comments section.